In the last 3 years, I lost everything I loved. I lost the woman I loved. I lost money, all my money. And I lost my mother through death. And now I'm losing this house. And what I discovered, unless some of you out there think, oh, that poor woman, don't feel sorry for me. It was the best thing, one of the best things that ever happened to me. I learned you can't make anybody love you. There's no way to win love, and there's no way to defeat death. What I discovered out of all of that experience is the only thing that matters is love. And I don't mean this in a gushy, soft way. What I mean is it doesn't matter if my lover was a good lover. It doesn't matter if my mother was a good mother. And in the main, both of them were. All that matters is I loved them. I'd given Ruby Fruit Jungle to a small feminist publisher called Daughters Press. By the way, I hope every publishing house in New York remembers that every one of them had a shot at Ruby Fruit and turned it down. So may they rot eternally by missing the next new thing. It was a little tiny place that had just begun, Daughters Press, which was Park Bowman and June Arnold, and June just died last year. Said, we'll take this book, but we don't have any money. And I said, well, shit, neither do I. That's no news. So they said, well, here's $1,000. At least that'll get the presses rolling. And that was it. That's what I got for that book. In the meantime, Ruby Fruit took off like a shot without any advertising. This book sold word of mouth 70,000 copies. This is kind of remarkable. That was the first time I had money. I had a check for $125,000 and the government took half of it. They took more from me in one day than my entire family had ever earned, ever. And I couldn't believe this was America. I felt as though somebody had put a gun to my head. I was supposed to be happy, and I felt robbed. I couldn't believe they could do that to me. So with what I had left, I bought a Rolls Royce. And let me tell you what I did. I took the car, I drove to California because I knew the minute I hit California it'd be worth $5,000 more than I paid for it. And it was. And I then took that and bought a house in California. I didn't want to be in California, but I knew that real estate was booming. I held on to the house for 8 months and made $100,000 on it. Or maybe about 70 by the time I paid everybody out. But I made a lot of money, and then I came back here and reinvested it where I always wanted to be, which was Virginia. Just because I have never lied about myself, why should anyone assume that the people around me are gay? I certainly don't pick my friends on the basis of who they sleep with. I couldn't imagine anything worse. The one thing about Missy, she's unfailingly good-humored. As a result of working for me, of course, people come up and ask her if she's gay, which puts both of us in a... I mean, we either want to punch them out or laugh. I don't care what anybody is, including myself. There have been men that I've cared deeply for as well as women, but obviously that has no shock value, so the press just ignores that. But I think this whole business of being gay or being straight is ludicrous. I always have. And that's part of what my work is about, which is, oh, everybody grow up and get over it. Many women, I obviously can't speak for all women, are raised to need a great deal of sexual feedback in order to feel important or to feel that they're worth anything. They need men to desire them. They don't really want to go to bed with all these people, but they want to feel as though these people desire them. And a lot of times, in my case, women that are completely heterosexual and have never been around gay people assume, because they know that I've had some women lovers, that of course I'm going to be interested in them. Well, of course I'm not. I mean, I'm not remotely interested in them. But I have learned that you have to, somewhere along the line, tell them just like a man would. And I got to tell you, this kills me. But you got to tell them that, you know, they're attractive, and of course they're desirable, and you know that they would never go out with you. I mean, you sort of have to pacify them sexually and give them compliments, and then they settle themselves. It's really funny. They want you to treat them in some bizarre way as a man does, while telling everyone that they don't. But when you're alone with them, they really want that kind of feedback, that you find them attractive. Well, I am so far out of it. I mean, that doesn't even occur to me. But I've learned that if I don't do it, they get real angry. And that's the woman, it's the woman that you don't give the compliment to, who's going to run around and tell everybody you made a pass at her. I mean, it's mortifying. People can be so embarrassing sometimes. But it says a lot about women, and it's actually very sad that for many women that's the only kind of power they feel that they have. Come on, India. Keep us company. Okay. The phrase I like to use is, I am quite cautious of people who've been sterilized by rationality. I think rationality is a failed faith. You can't explain everything. You can't analyze everything. There's so much that happens inside human beings as well as between human beings that just doesn't render itself to logical conclusions, or to, my logic teacher would like it if I said Aristotelian paradigms. You know, A plus B doesn't always equal C. And we live in an age, I call it the non-fiction mentality. We live in an age that's very frightened of imagination and love. People are trying to explain love, most ludicrous thing in the world. You can never explain it. It's impossible to explain. Enjoy it. But not America, not America in the 1980s. Boy, they want explanations for everything, from cellulite to God. My theory is, if there's God, what does he want with cellulite? Come on. Come on, baby. Ooh, you're bigger than I am, but I've got more willpower. Come on. Getting ready to go on the road, it isn't like you just pack and go. It takes weeks to get ready to go. Because I have animals to leave behind, and a house to run, and a garden that, you know, the seasons don't wait for me. They don't care if I have a book to sell, and I got to get my garden in. Here I'm a fiction writer, and I go out every time I do a book. So I'm extraordinarily lucky, and I know it. I'm also I work well with the media. So in that sense, I'm good, and the publishing company's wise to send me on the road. You know, I will make more money for them. But I myself don't like doing it. I just want to write books. I don't want to go out and peddle them. You're up at 6 or 7 in the morning. You show up at a studio. Usually they want you there at 8, even though you won't go on until 9 because they're so nervous. To sit there and strain to think of something to say and be clever and charming while you're doing it. Well, I'm not naturally clever and charming. It's hard work. And you really have to be disciplined, because every hour on the hour you see a different person. And they all ask the same question.
You've been described as a lesbian author, feisty feminist, lesbian activist. How would you like to be described?
Writer. Just writer. I mean, all those descriptions are pejorative in their essence. Alice Walker's called a black writer. James Baldwin's called a black writer, but Norman Mailer isn't called a Jewish heterosexual writer, and John Updike isn't called a WASP heterosexual writer. So obviously some of us are labeled and some of us aren't, and I can only perceive that those labels are just a trifle pejorative. Either label everybody, absolutely everybody, or label none of us.
Is there anything that possibly through this book you think might change people's...
I don't know. I'm a writer. I have no idea what people will do with my work. I hope it makes them think. I hope it makes them see that, my God, these people are harming no one. It's like being left-handed. For God's sakes, if they could be right-handed, don't you think they would? Because the whole world's made for right-handed people. So why punish them for something they can't help? In a sense, it's the responsibility of heterosexuals to make it easier for gay people, because God knows they're suffering enough. Just as long as you're responsible in your community and happy, what you do is your own business. That's all anybody has to say to anybody. I mean, until you can walk on water, you got no business telling me how to live.
How do you describe pansexual?
And I think what I'm trying to say by pan is that at any time in your life, somebody can touch your heart, but it may not be who your mom and dad told you could. It could. It could be an individual from another race, another country, the same sex, poor, rich, different than you in some vital respect. Let's say you're white and you fall in love with somebody black, which was the topic of Southern discomfort. You're not hurting anybody. And if you're happy, you're going to make your friends happy, you're going to do better work on the job. It doesn't cost anybody anything. So what purpose do these restrictive rules serve? I mean, the reward for conformity is everybody likes you but yourself.
Rita Mae Brown is with me this morning, and we are obviously talking about her newest book. It's called Sudden Death. It's one that I think you've been thinking about for quite a while.
Well, I didn't intend to do it, Diane. That's the curious thing about Sudden Death. It's the debt I owe to a friend who died, and 3 days before Judy Lacey died, who was a reporter for the Boston Herald Examiner, she said, do this book. Inevitably, when material comes to you, you do it the only way that you can. But I drew on our 2 years of conversations and my 2 years out in the pro circuit to try to come up with a story that I thought would tell the emotional truth, but not the factual truth.
So you really were fulfilling this promise to a friend, but you also had a fair amount of your own experiences in regard to the women's pro tennis circuit that obviously you could bring to it.
I learned a lot out there,
Yeah.
and it was extremely valuable to me because it's like traveling in Purda. You're in an all-female environment, and it's not fun.
Did you feel that same way in terms of your own relationship with Martina Navratilova, that you were there for her and that you had to continue to support her almost to your own detriment?
No, not exactly. I mean, yes, I was there for her, and I wanted to be. I had the great advantage of being able to take my work with me, so that I could
Sure.
always sit back in a locker room and fire off a chapter if I had to, or lock myself in the hotel room. I think most people who don't have that are really they're behind the 8 ball, let's face it, and if the player gets tired of them and they're dumped, what happens to their career? What happens to maybe the 2 extra years they should have been in college or the 2 years they should have been on the job? Me, I could just go hit the typewriter. So I was in an very different situation than most people out there who are attached to players. Also, I never pretended to be a coach or a secretary or anything like that.
What about the people out there who consider themselves very religious, who say that they feel a very strong disparity between religious belief and homosexual activity?
To me, love is the ultimate human act. And if it's between 2 men or 2 women or a man or a woman or a black or a white, old or young, I really don't care. I can't see that it is damaging or against God in any way, shape, or form. But I'm not a person that's rigid. I mean, there's some people that want neat little rules because it makes the chaos of life more manageable for them. It makes them feel safe. I know we're not safe. I don't care what you believe. You're not safe. Disease and death are going to get you.
How about your family, Rita Mae? Do they come and visit you there in Charlottesville?
Well, Diane, I have dirt to tell. My mother is just having herself, well, I can't say the word, she's having a blank fit. And over this book, Sudden Death, yes, she comes to visit me. She descends upon me with alarming regularity. I mean, she's furious because she's not in Sudden Death. I always stick Mom in every book.
Marvelous.
And she said, listen, honey, why am I not in Sudden Death? I said, Mother, you're 78. You're too old to be a tennis player. She said, well, you could have made me a promoter. Now, you think that's the end of the story? You want to know what that old biddy did to me?
What?
Publishers Weekly ran an issue in which they showed the baby pictures of writers, and somebody called my mother, and she sent them a naked picture, and they used it, so she's had her revenge.
Marvelous, Rita Mae. Is she in good health? She sounds as though she is.
Listen, only the good die young. My mother will live forever. Jutes, my mother's nickname, is very high-spirited and will tell you exactly what she thinks. Doesn't care about kissing anybody's rear end. She'll just tell you. That's good, but sometimes you need somebody to be a little more open, especially when you're a kid. Sometimes you don't want to hear what's right and wrong. You just want to be loved. And Mother wouldn't have any of that. You were going to be responsible. You were going to stand on your own feet. And if you made a mistake, you were going to pay for it. And I can see where that was valuable. But yet there's part of me sometimes that just wish she'd give me a break. You know, she'd let me get away with something. Well, she wouldn't, you know, I would be, well, I guess the phrase is campus. Wouldn't get out of the house if I had done something really bad. I would get a licking, too. She's a strong believer in corporal punishment. And I don't think she was wrong at all, actually. Sometimes you need to know where the line is, and a talk isn't going to do it for you. She was never violent, I don't mean that, but, you know, there were a couple times when I was going to get a good smack, and that was that. I was a child. I didn't understand adult life. I didn't understand their worries. I didn't understand bills. And there were times when I should have done what she told me because she was my mother. And I should have given her the benefit of the doubt and knew she was older and was wiser, which of course I never did. I always knew I was smarter than my mother. That's what I thought. And I gotta say, to my embarrassment, at age 38, my mother never told me anything that wasn't right. You hear that, Mom? Do you know I hate that more than anything? I wish I could have found some fault in her and say, my mother did this, it was wrong, my mother did that. She never told me one thing that was really wrong. I'm muscly all over. I always have been. I don't have to do much about it. It's just there. And I was always sort of not real happy about having those big muscly legs, but I figured, well, if I got them, I might as well make a joke out of it. This is when girls were supposed to have stick legs and gigantic boobs, kind of like water wings. This was the age of Marilyn Monroe and Jane Mansfield and Jane Russell, and here I was sort of on the Audrey Hepburn side of life, and she wasn't real popular yet. So I knew that I had a long way to go.
There was this little room at the tennis courts where we would gather all the time. And because it was cool, and it was where the drink machine was and the candy machine, we were sitting in there talking, and Rita told me that she was adopted. I don't feel that anybody, that was a stigma in any way to be adopted.
It wasn't at school. Sometimes it would be in the family, and in my family, because I would have to battle it out with my cousins, and, you know, if I would have a bad day or cut a shine, as we say, my mother would bring me up short with it. So I had that. But at school, I don't think anybody cared. And I was one of those kids that I would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and walk to school and sit in the student council room until classes started, because I'd rather be at school than home. Our little house was next to the railroad tracks. He was over in a section called Coral Ridge, which was really very nice and plush, and ours was not so nice, but it was clean. It was a clean little neighborhood. But there were a lot of black kids on the other side of that track, which was where Old Dixie Highway was. So I would know them, and they all went to Dillard High School. So in my senior year, imbued with a sense of American egalitarianism, I was on the student council, and I very foolishly suggested to the head of our student council that I really thought it would be the healthiest thing in the world if our student council had a meeting with the Dillard High School student council, and we could get to know one another and maybe all do something for the city itself, the black kids and the white kids. Jesus H. Christ on a raft. That guy practically knocked my front teeth down my throat. And that was the beginning, I think, of something in me. I mean, something in me just kind of turned.
I can't imagine, bringing that up.
I had to get the hell out. I mean, the day I graduated from high school was one of the happiest days of my life. Everybody is crying and sobbing, and boy, I just went home, threw everything in a suitcase, and I was gone. That was it. I couldn't wait. I had a professor, David Chalmers, who was very good, and he'd written a book called Hooded Americanism about the Ku Klux Klan. Through him, I began to go to meetings where there were black leaders of Gainesville, which is always the teacher, the undertaker, and the doctor. I mean, that's all there was at that time, 62. And a couple of us kids from school, all of whom were white, of course, just trying to understand what had happened to the town. And so that's where I stubbed my toe. That's where I first got real political knowledge, because we tried to make other people aware of it. I mean, this was 62, remember. There wasn't any real rioting yet. Nobody knew what was coming. And we were so simple. We thought, well, we'll write some editorials in the school paper. Boy, we got slammed. They played rough, and I was a scholarship student, and they could yank mine away. And the pretext they used is that I was a lesbian. I had made the mistake of telling my sorority president, and it was Delta, 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 that she'd pressured me about going to these meetings where there were black people. And she starts out, well, you know, would you want to go to school with one? I said, we do. What's the big deal? She said, well, would you want to live next to one? And I said, I don't care. I didn't. And she said, well, you know, the final foothold of racism. Would you want to marry one? I don't know why that made me mad, but I blew my top. I was 18 and not nearly as adept at handling myself as I am now. And I just blew my top, and I said, I don't give a flying you-know-what. I said, I don't care if somebody's white or black or Jewish, and being a Jew is not a plus in 1962 in the middle of Florida, or male or female. I don't care. If I want to love somebody, I want to love them. That was it. She left me flat and went to the Dean of Women and said, I said that I wanted to go to bed with women. Literally within 2 hours, I was sitting in front of the Dean of Women. I'll never forget her, a broad-assed ex-Marine who leaned over and said, now tell me, dear, what is this trouble you have with women? And I looked at her and I said, I don't have any trouble with women, except I have a lot of trouble with fat dykes like you. I went in to take my final exams, and it was all over the campus that I was a queer, which in truth I don't think I was much, really. I mean, if heterosexuality is 1 and homosexuality is 10, I'm floating always between 4 and 6. And I think most of us are. The only thing between me and you is I'll admit it, and I'll act on it. So they took my scholarship away, and I went home, and I wasn't going to get far there. My mother was disgraced and disgusted with me, and thought I had really been far too rebellious and unkind. Maybe not unkind, but just I should have shut up and been discreet instead of buck the system. And I hitchhiked to New York, and that was that. Well, it's never a happy prospect watching somebody die. Fortunately for Mother and fortunately for me, she didn't drag it out, and she did not have a lingering disease. But I was able to talk to her a little bit before she died, and she died like she lived. She wasn't afraid. I asked her, are you afraid? She said, no. And I said, do you want to die? And she said, no, but that she had no control over it. And Mother was, she wasn't religious in a gushy way, but she was quite a believer, and she just said, I don't think it's up to me anymore. And it was, she pretty much died as she lived, which is chin up. This is in memory of my mother, actually, because Mother was just a fabulous dresser. On no money, she made most of her own clothes, and then she would go buy costume jewelry at McCrory's 5 and Dime, and she would throw herself together and look like $1,000,000. It was amazing. And I thought, I have to have something to remember Mother. I can't pay bills. That would be a crime with this few $1,000s. I've got to get something that's totally Mom and outrageous and wonderful, and this is it. I'm leaving this big house because it is too big, and I'd planned on fixing up one end of the house for Mother, who was getting old. And when Mother died, it was both unexpected and cast my thoughts in new directions. I realized there was no point in having this enormous amount of space just for one person, so I'm going to sell the house, which will be hard in some ways because I love it very much. I think that when you truly love people, that they stay with you forever, even though their bodies aren't around. And Mother said some things on her deathbed which were odd. She had a very long conversation with me about a woman named Martina with whom I lived for 2 years. And it was the damnedest thing because about 6 months after Mother died, I got a phone call from Martina, just sort of chatting. And I heard her say, in the exact same words, some of the stuff that my mother said to me. And that was eerie. It was like hearing Mother's voice, but it was somebody else's body. And that was very, very strange. And I started thinking, Mom, what are you doing? Are you still floating around somewhere? What's cooking here?